Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about the new Natasha Denona I Need a Nude collection, or we can just call it her Holiday 2020 collection. So I have her mini Zendo palette, I have her new highlighter, and I have the two new lipsticks. So what we're going to be doing today is like a demo of the pieces. I'll also be swatching everything, of course, for you on my arm. And then at the end of this video, I'm laughing because I got carried away. I put out a question on my Instagram stories asking you guys which highlighters you want me to compare to this new Natasha Denona highlighter. And I got so many responses. I had gotten some requests, which gave me the idea. I was like, oh, well, let me see what else people want me to compare this highlighter to. I got so many responses. So I have about 5 arms worth of comparisons. It was just fun. It was just really, really fun. I think after a while, you're just gonna be like, oh, okay, they all look the same to me. But there is one stand out to me that I think is like almost a dupe. But anyway, we'll get to that at the very end. Let's just go ahead and get into the pieces now. So I have foundation, concealer, powder, blush, bronzer, eyebrows. I have basically everything down except for what I need to put on from this Natasha Denona collection. So we're gonna start with the highlighter. This is the I Need a Nude Glow, and here is a close-up of the packaging. This is typical packaging. It's the same size as her like blush duos or her other super glow highlighters. So I like the size of this package. I really like this kind of like rose gold, copper toned metallic finish that it has. And then on the inside, we have this gorgeous highlighter. It is what I believe is a baked formula, and it just has such a lovely texture. And I've gone into this palette to swatch a lot. And so it's one of those baked palettes that has like very, very little kick up. You can see it almost looks brand new, but I've gone in with my finger, at least 7 or 8 times at this point, and it really doesn't seem to make a dent. But anyway, here is a swatch of this highlight. So it's a beautiful gold tone. There is quite a bit of like shimmery reflectiveness, but I am curious to see what it looks like on my cheeks. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got my Sonia G Sculpt 2 brush. I'm gonna go into the highlighter. I definitely recommend using a brush that kind of picks up product easily. So like a natural haired brush or a stiffer kind of synthetic brush that has like texture to it. That's definitely what I would recommend. And I'm just going to apply some here. Wow. Well, you definitely don't need a lot of product for a lot of impact. Hoo-wee. That is some beaming highlight. I think now that I have it on my cheek, I think it looks very, very wet. I don't know if it looks like totally glass-like, but it does have such a high, like consistent shine that it just looks like wet to me. It looks very glossy. Oh, wow. And while I'm doing this, I did purchase all of these products off of the Sephora site. I will have the prices and everything down below in my description box because I can never remember. So definitely check down there. Wow. Well, if you were looking for a super glowy highlight, wow, you've got it right here. And I love this formula. I love this like super smooth highlight. I mean, that is beautiful. And I don't see any kind of like micro glitters or any kind of like bits in there. It doesn't look chunky at all. It's really, really smooth. I think she did a phenomenal job with this highlight. This is really, really quite a bold highlight. You have to really be into highlight to enjoy this highlighter, just FYI. But when we get into the comparisons, I will definitely be comparing these to other Natasha Denona highlights and a whole slew of others. But this is definitely one of the brightest highlights I have ever experienced. That is incredible. All right, next up, let's play with this mini Zendo palette. I don't know, this was a palette that I was like, well, I definitely want to get it, 1, to review for you guys, and 2, I'm just kind of curious, like, how similar this is to other palettes, and of course we'll do some comparison swatches with this one as well. But I will say, after finger swatching this mini palette feels like the creamy mattes in here feel the creamiest, the softest, the silkiest out of any palette of Natasha Denona's. I don't know what kind of magic is in this mini palette. I don't know if it's just kind of like these two shades. You know, like different shades can feel different. Some can feel a little bit grittier, even though it's the same formula. But the shades in this mini palette are just so smooth and buttery and soft feeling. So I'm really excited to get these on my eyes. So here is a close-up of the palette, and here are the swatches. So I just swatched from left to right. So the first one is Stark, which is a metallic. Then we have Bare, which is a creamy matte. Stripped, which is a metallic. Daze, which is a duochrome. And then Uncovered, which is a creamy matte. And as I understand it, all 5 of the shades in here are brand new. Oh, I forgot to mention, in the Natasha Denona highlighter, the shelf life is 18 months once it's been open, and it was made in Italy. And the eyeshadow palette, made in Italy, oh my God, 24 months is the shelf life once it's been opened. All right, let's get these on my eyes. I feel like I've been doing a lot of pinky peachy shades lately, so I think maybe I want to stick with these 3. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So let me go ahead and get a brush out. I've got my Sonia G Worker 1 brush. I'm just going to go into this first shade here. This is Bare, this creamy matte. I'm so curious about these mattes because, like I said, when I finger swatched them, they were like the softest I had ever felt. So it is a little bit pinker and deeper than my skin tone, but it barely shows up. I mean, I think this will be great to help blend out other shadows. I'm just trying to get a sense like if it's behaving differently from other Natasha Denona creamy mattes. I feel like they're going on very similarly. They have like the same feel as her other creamy mattes. I don't know why it feels so soft to me in the pan. You guys let me know down below in the comment section if you picked up this mini palette. Like, just do a finger swatch of these mattes, and even the other ones. I just feel like they're so creamy feeling. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Okay, I'm gonna go into the deeper matte here. This one is Uncovered. And I'm just going to add a bit to the outer corner. Yeah, these are behaving like other Natasha Denona creamy mattes. Okay, well that's good. I like this Uncovered shade. It's like a terracotta kind of shade. All right, we have some basic shading down. I think I definitely want to use this Stark metallic shade. It's just so like eye-catching to me. I think I'm gonna start just kind of on the outer corner, see where it goes, see where it leads me. I'm gonna take this flat shader. This is a Wang Goss number 7, but it's from one of his sets, so the numbering is a little bit different, but this is the brush I'm gonna be using. Just placing this Stark color kind of on the inside of that Uncovered matte shade, just to kind of help fade it out a little and blend it in. And then I think I am gonna kind of add it to the lash line here. This shade is blending really beautifully. All right, so just a little outer corner shading, and then I want to use this center shade, which is Stripped. Kind of want to put that all over my lid. So I'm going to use like a little bit of a fluffier brush. I don't know if I want such a heavy kind of like layer over it. So I'm going to use my Hakuhodo brush, which is a bit fluffier. This is the J5523. I'm going to go into Stripped. Just pick up a light amount, and I'm just going to press that kind of on the remainder of my lid here. Ooh, how pretty. And I'm gonna finish blending out everything up here. I'm gonna add a little bit of this Bare up here underneath my brow. Kind of help blend that Uncovered shade out a little bit. Oh, I like that. I think this Stripped color really kind of brought it home. I love that on the like inner and mid portion of my lid there. And it blends so beautifully into this Stark shade. And happy to report these shadows behave beautifully. I know like way back when Natasha Denona started introducing these mini palettes, and you know, some people were talking about how like the formulas weren't the same, and I had some trouble, I remember, with, I can't remember which one now. But anyway, one of the original ones. And I feel like her mini palettes now, the quality is Natasha Denona quality. Like I love this one. The mini glam was great. The mini retro was great. So anyway, big thumbs up for this mini Zendo palette. I'm sitting here trying to decide if I want to put some of this Stark on my lower lash line. I think just a little bit. Let me do that. I'm gonna grab that flat shader that I used and just drag a little bit there. And then maybe I'm gonna take the same brush and go into Stripped and add this to the inner portion of my lower lid. Yeah, I think that works. I don't know if I needed to do that, but I feel like the look looks a little bit more cohesive now. All right, let me finish up my eyes and we'll get to the lips. All right, all done. So let's go ahead and take a look at these lipsticks. So she's come out with 2 new lipsticks, part of her I Need a Nude lipstick line. One is called Andrea. It's number 10NB, and it comes in this like bronze type packaging. And here's a close-up of the bullet. Both of these shades are very, very light nude. So here's Andrea, and here's a swatch of Andrea, NB10. And then she's also come out with Maria, which is 30 NP, and this comes in more of a rose gold kind of copper packaging. This one matches like the highlight packaging. And then here is a close-up of Maria, and here is a swatch of Maria on top of Andrea. And so these 2 shades are very, very close, but Andrea, I think, is a little bit warmer, and Maria is a little bit pinker. So let's go ahead and, let me go ahead and lip swatch Andrea first. And I'm a big fan of this Natasha Denona formula. They're very, very creamy and moisturizing, and they're really, really pigmented. You only need like 1 or 2 passes to get like full pigmentation. And they have a slight, I can never tell if it's vanilla bean or cocoa, but one of those kind of scent. So here is Andrea. Very pale nude for me. I don't usually wear nudes quite this pale, although I do feel like I'm getting more and more used to it. They are definitely kind of like growing on me, and I think if you use maybe like a deeper lip liner, it could work. But I think today this lip color looks a little bit too warm. So let's go ahead and take this off, and then we'll put on Maria. All right, and now for Maria. Right, there is Maria. Yeah, it's just a little, like the slightest bit cooler than Andrea, but both of them are very, very pale nudes, at least what I'm used to. So these are the 2 new shades. I don't know if these are like everyday nudes for me, but if I am going for like that kind of concealer lip look, if I'm doing kind of like a smoky eye, I think these are the shades that I would think of and would reach for. But the formula of these is fantastic. They're just so, so comfortable. Once you get them on and they kind of like settle down, I just don't even feel like I have lipstick on. They're so good. All right, so let's get into the comparison swatches. So I just have one comparison for the mini Zendo palette, and then we're gonna move into the highlighter comparisons because I have a lot of those. So we've got the mini Zendo palette. This is the current mini palette. And when I first saw pictures of this, I was like, isn't that like the mini retro palette? So here is the mini retro palette right here. So what I've done is I swatched the mini Zendo on top, and then I have the mini retro at the bottom. And there are 3 shades in these 2 palettes that I think are kind of similar. So there is the nude kind of creamy matte shade. I have those like marked there. Similar, the Zendo one is a little bit more pink. It's a little bit cooler than the one in the retro palette. And then the second shade that looks slightly similar is the 3rd shade in the Zendo palette. It's the 2nd shade in on the retro palette. And both shades are a metallic finish. They both have like the M designation, but the shade in the Zendo palette is like almost a little bit thicker feeling. It has more coverage, or it's more pigmented. It's just thicker, I feel like. And the shade of it is a little bit more like frosty. It's a little bit more silvery than the one in the retro palette. And then lastly is the 4th shade in the Zendo palette is, well, to my eye, it looked similar to the last shade in the retro palette. And the one in the Zendo palette it's peachier, it's shimmery, and it's also a duochrome versus the one in the retro palette, which is a metallic shade. So there definitely are some similarities between the Zendo and the retro mini palettes. All right, so on to the highlight comparisons. So here is my first arm, we'll say. The first swatch in all of these arm pictures is the new Natasha Denona I Need a Nude Glow highlight. So that's the first one all the way on the left on all of these arm swatches that I'm doing. So we're going to be comparing to some other Natasha Denona highlighters first. So right next to that one is the Natasha Denona Super Glow in 01 Fair. And this one is, as you can see, it's much, much lighter. Next we have the Natasha Denona Super Glow in number 2, Light Medium. And this is also lighter. It's also a little bit cooler in tone. Next we have the Super Glow in number 3, Bronze. And this is much, much more yellow. And then I compared it to last holiday season's Natasha Denona Glow Gold. This duo didn't really work for me, but I decided to compare it to this one on the left. And it's just a completely different formula. This is almost like a top coat, kind of glittery, sheer base kind of highlight. So it really is quite different. Next, from the Tan Face Palette, I compare it to the highlighter in here, the bottom right-hand corner. And this one is just a little bit less peachy. It has like a similar kind of finish to it, but the shade is quite different. And then from the Love Glow cheek palette, I compared the same highlight in there. And this one is deeper and it's also peachier than the new one. All right, here is the next arm. And again, we have the new Natasha Denona I Need a Nude Glow powder first. Next to that, we have the new Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Superstar Glow highlighter. And this one is peachier. The formula is also quite different. This is like a pressed powder. It's quite creamy, where the Natasha Denona is like a baked, harder type of formula. I also want to mention these do not appear in any order. I just kind of started swatching, so I apologize, but they're not in any particular order. Next up is the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Star highlighter. This one is much deeper in tone. Next is the highlighter in the NARS Orgasm X face palette. And this actually surprised me. The one in the NARS palette is much golder and much warmer than the new Natasha Denona. Next, I have the Chanel Lion highlighter. This is just the illuminating powder. There's no shade associated to this one. This was limited edition, but this one is peachier and it's just a little bit lighter. It's a little bit more sheer than the Natasha Denona. Next, I compared to the Chantecaille Les Paillettes limited edition highlight. All I did was swatch the top. The bottom is like this pinky shade, which isn't even close. So I just did the gold top there. And this one, it's lighter. It's like a lighter gold than the Natasha Denona. And then the last one on this arm, I compared to the Dior Skin Nude Air Luminizer in 001. And this one is whiter. It's like frostier looking than the Natasha Denona. All right, for the next arm, again, we have Natasha Denona first. Next after that, we have the Burberry Nude Gold number 2 highlight. And this one is lighter and golder than the Natasha Denona. Next, we have the Melt Stargazer highlight. And this is whiter and like frostier. Next, we have the ABH Amrezy highlighter. And this one also is like whiter, lighter, and brighter all around. Next, we have the Nabla Skin Glazing Glass Skin Finish Glow Powder in Amnesia, and this one is cooler in tone. And then the last two on this arm are Ofra highlights. First, we have Rodeo Drive, and this one is golder than Natasha Denona. And then we have Blissful, which is more pink. All right, for the next arm, again, Natasha Denona is first. And then I have the Tom Ford Sheer Highlighting Duo in Reflects Gilt next to it. So I have the top one next to it, and this one is deeper in tone. And then I have the bottom one swatched, and this is also deeper, but it's also much peachier. Next, I have the Tom Ford Radiant Perfecting Powder in Gilt Glow, and this one is quite obviously different from the Natasha Denona, but it's also more subtle, which I thought was worth noting. And then I have the same formula in Luna swatched. And there's a similar tone actually to the Natasha Denona and this one, but again, this one, because the formula is quite different, I just feel like the effect is completely different. Next, I compared it to the Hourglass Ambient Metallic Strobe Lighting palette. So I have Absolute Strobe Light, which is on the left in this palette, Pure Strobe Light, and then Lucent Strobe Light. And the first two are obviously lighter, brighter, and cooler than the Natasha Denona. And then the last one, the Lucent Strobe Light, is actually surprisingly close to the Natasha Denona, but it is a little bit deeper And then here is the last arm of comparison. So again, the first one is the NATASHA DENONA. Next to that, we have Becca's Champagne Pop. And this one is a little like whiter and frostier in appearance. I think it could just be the formula. This is like a pressed powder. It's much thicker than the NATASHA DENONA. And many of you requested me to compare Opal and Becca. I don't have that one. So this is the only one that was similar. And then next to that, we have MAC's Whisper of Guilt. I have some like holiday or something limited edition packaging. That's why it has this like snowflake embossing on there. But this highlight I think is actually the closest one to the NATASHA DENONA. Out of all of these comparisons, I was really about ready to give up, but this one is so similar in formula and it's similar in tone, it's similar in finish, like all of that. So that, in my humble opinion, is the closest to this new NATASHA DENONA. Next up, I have the MAC Soft and Gentle, and this is more sheer and much pinkier in tone. Next, we have Laura Mercier's Face Illuminator in Addiction, and this one is golder, more yellow. And next to that, we have Indiscretion, and this one is just a little bit deeper than the NATASHA DENONA. The tone's a little bit different. And then finally, we have the deepest shade in the Charlotte Tilbury Bar of Gold palette. These two were just much too light, and so I thought this one is the closest, and it is the closest, but it's deeper than the NATASHA DENONA. And I forgot to compare them to two of the Wang Goss palettes that I thought could be kind of close. So I compared to Coral Rose, this one, which is lighter, and also to Bright Poppy, which is this one. So I have the Coral Rose here, then this is the NATASHA DENONA, and then here's the Bright Poppy. So the NATASHA DENONA kind of falls in between these two. It's obviously much closer to the Coral Rose, but it's just a hint deeper than that one. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed all of those comparison swatches. Whew, that was a lot of fun to do, but that was a lot. That was a lot of highlighter, I really felt like my eyes were just blown out by the end, and I'm like, they all look the same, they're all dupes. But I really think that MAC Whisper of Guilt is the closest one. You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.